as you become more successful and you see less people look like you that are being successful in this realm, and you end up being the one guy that looks like me that's successful, or the couple guys that, or the usual suspects that you see in the audition room, or things of that nature. You know, you start to sometimes question why you. Now I feel as though it was my path. You know, it was my purpose and spirituality, and growing up in a household that was very focused on, you know, church and spiritual and meditation and just being aware of the world that we live in. You know, I felt I was destined for something, not knowing what that was, but just something.
Wow.
You know, I think coming up in Newark, New Jersey, coming up in that environment, and, you know, having, you know, when you're younger, you know, you're living life, you know, you're taking it a day at a time. You know, you're going to basketball practice, you're going to school, you know, you're going to church, you know, for me, it was, you know, taking a lot of trips to New York City, going on auditions at a really, really young age, and just figuring out what that is. Having parents pretty aware, you know, and very present in my life, you know, growing up. You know, that was rare amongst my family, and amongst my friend group, you know, having both parents that was there and very present, and aware of my environment as well. You know, you know, being told to look out for these things and make good choices, to be disciplined, to be focused on things, you know, get your schoolwork, you know, all the you know, the positives in growing up in an environment like that. And, you know, hats off to my parents, and to sacrifice so much to make sure their kids, you know, were safe and grew up grew up in an environment. It ain't easy making ends meet, you know. Grew up very poor, but didn't feel like it, you know what I'm saying? It was very, you know, I think they did a good job at hiding those things, you know. I think as we get older, we look back, it was like, oh man, we went through that, or that's why we slept in the kitchen that one time with the oven open, or that's when we stayed at grandma's house for, like, you know, a couple of weeks, when you know, so you get that reflection of how we kind of grew up. And I think for me, you know, always having a bigger purpose, I think, or just, you know, just that optimism, you know, that I was a big dreamer as a kid. And I think, you know, you start to, not just to focus on just the work of it all, but since I was working such a young age, that's the thing that I can kind of point to of, you know, booking auditions and getting this job and traveling to this place and experiencing these things and coming back home with these experiences and not having a lot of people who could relate or could, you know, I could soundboard off of. And I think in feeling like that, you don't want to alienate those people, you know, and I think, and this is all, I guess, in hindsight, you don't share these stories as much. You know, maybe you should, because you don't want somebody to feel like inadequate or, you know, not being able to have that experience that you might have had. And I think, you know, that snowballs as you get older, and from stepping stone to stepping stone, as I continue to be successful at a young age. You start to question, why am I being so successful? And the people that look just like me, that are right next to me in these everyday things, aren't necessarily doing that, or not choosing to, you know, just didn't have those options that were laid out to them. And I think you start to doubt yourself for whatever reason, or feel guilty for the things that you may or may not have. Even though, you know, our parents were people of service, you know, block parties, or, you know, cooking church dinners, or, you know, whenever, you know, my house was the house that everybody came to at some point, whether we were going to get pizza that night, or dad was going to take everybody camping, or going to these things. Like, that was kind of my house within my neighborhood and community. And so I think for me, being a person of service, kind of, because, you know, it kind of comes from how I was raised, and those are the examples that I knew growing up. I always felt lucky too. I think it's all the doubt. It's the imposter syndrome. It's the blessings that you can't really accept fully. And you listen to other people speak who are successful, or you see examples that you kind of feel connected to. Like, man, that kind of feels like me. Or what he just said, or what she just said, I resonate with that. You know, I feel like that sometimes, you know. Other people who are looking at you saying, no, Mike, this is what you have. This is what you can be. This is what you are. Nah, that can't. No, that's too good. No, that ain't me. You know, your own presence in a situation where you have to step back and look at yourself and be like, am I this guy right now? Like, oh man, there's a room full of people who showed up because of something I'm doing, and they're in service or in support of my idea, my thing. Okay, that looks and feels like I'm the guy. Okay, I'm in the industry where, you know, the success of your work and your art has been, you know, dictated and validated by other people's opinions. And whether those opinions are factual or projected on you from their own individual perspective, I think it was a combination of all those things. And I've always been curious and walked towards how do I make myself better? What are the things that I need, the tools that I need in order to improve myself, the way I think, how do I maximize myself, you know? So from, I think, getting an executive coach, you know, who talks to executives all day and you know, how to create healthy conversations, the right type of conversations to have as you're building a team around you. Because, you know, as you know, it's not just us. You know, we have an entire team of people that surround us that help us achieve our dreams and get the big idea done. You know, a spiritual advisor, a spiritual coach that I have who, you know, helps me do my energy work, my spiritual work, and help sift through the noise and find those things. And I think it wasn't until I had, you know, roles that challenged my spirit and myself in a real way that in the weight and where the attention was so loud that it was, you know, it was deafening, and it was, and I couldn't, you know, see clearly. And, you know, these champagne problems, you know what I'm saying? You know that, like, you know, we're blessed. So, but the weight is so heavy, you know, and people sometimes think and they see what we have or what, you know, what we're doing, and it's like, oh, just be grateful, you know, or just, you know, what are you complaining about, you know? And you know, most people wouldn't be able to walk, you know, a block in our shoes, you know, with this stuff. And I think it was, and then you have moments where you resent things and you're angry at, you know, the feelings that you accumulate for not being clear or not understanding, you know, why this. There's a lot of whys, and you're not going to get all the answers, but you want to, you know, be able to get to a place where you're clear. So to answer your question, when did I decide? When did I feel like that? Maybe 2 years ago, maybe a year ago. You look at where your family has come from, and shit, look at your bloodline. You know, you look at, you know, your community. You're like, man, there's a cycle there from generation to generation that happens. When you get to yourself, you're like, man, can I stop this? Can I change this? I could do this. Once you know better, you got to almost do better. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I refuse to ignore it. I refuse to see it an opportunity that I had to change things and act like it didn't exist. And I think that was the thing for me that was like, nah, I gotta, if that's my purpose, if that's my path, is to just see it and I can see the pieces, and if I can just continue to do this, or if I stay down the pathway on that, and I might be able to make a big difference in my nephew's life or my future children's, my future grandchildren's life, I got to do that. Because there's been so many people that it wasn't the perfect storm for them to have that opportunity. It wasn't the right time in the world. Technology wasn't there. The resources, the right social conversations are being had for us to have these platforms and speak and be successful the way we are. You know, you gotta do it. And I think that was a big part of it, you know, understanding my own mortality, you know, and understanding, you know, that, you know, life isn't a forever thing. And I think that happens when you get older too. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, just turned 37, and it's like, wow, I vividly remember, you know, 15. I vividly remember 21. I vividly remember 25, 30, you know, and I used to look at 35, 37 like ancient, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, oh man, we're here. And it's like, you got to do what you got to do while you're here and make an impact, you gotta fulfill yourself, whatever that may be, you know? And I think, so that moment for me where it was like, okay, I can do this. Maybe a couple years ago, I think it was like, right as I was stepping into directing Creed 3. And the weight of that, and being the captain of the ship the first time, being captain of the ship I've made movies before, I've done that. I know what that's like, but I've never ever been the director, the captain of the ship. And I think that responsibility, that pressure, that, I'm not a dad, but everybody's looking to you for the answer, for the solve, for the leadership. And I think that really thrust me into a mindset of leadership that I never quite had the opportunity to do before. This woman, Ramona Oliver, that's known me my entire life, she's my spiritual advisor and coach. And I think starting the day, in meditation, you're taking a moment to clear yourself and prepare yourself for the day. It's so important to step out of your home with intent and intention. A lot of times it's, what are you projecting on a situation to help it manifest, instead of negatively thinking about things that can help block your blessings. That's a big thing, So I think, and we all have moments of negativity. That's part of it. It's yin and yang. You're never gonna fully get rid of that. But to practice those things in the morning, I think was a big help for me.
Yeah, huge.
You shoot movies and you're doing things, you're walking out, you hear stories of people, but they just can't get a break sometimes. And for whatever reason, it could be from stepping off the curb, twisting the ankle, to, the parking ticket, to the thing, to I just can't get a break. And there's certain people that carry this cloud, and I think some of that can be contributed to the thought process and the thinking and the energy that you're putting into these things. And it's sometimes easier said than done, but to stop and to reframe and to clear yourself and to, no, I'm walking in this light today, and see how much of a difference that can make. And more on the structurally side, this guy, Drew Kugler, who, no relation to Ryan Coogler, things like that, who was an executive coach, and as my ambitions grew from production company to brand marketing consulting companies to, just the products and the businesses, the conversations I need to have with the team, and leadership, and everybody's coming from different backgrounds, and how do you speak everybody's love language? Because everybody, you have to speak differently a little bit to everybody, so they can receive it the way you meant it, And I think having the quality of conversations is something that was really helpful for me, meaningful conversations, and giving people the space to hear me and also hold them accountable to the things that I need to hold them accountable for. I think the combination of the two allowed me to look at situations and opportunities differently, for people to look at me differently. Because it's also a troubling thing when you're walking around as talent for a long time. That's how they see you, And
you have an identity.
I have an identity. That's what so there's these kid gloves that come along with that. You know what I'm saying? It's not everybody's fault. Everybody's in a role. You have to sometimes just step back and look at the thing that we're in. Like, we're in an industry, that has generations and generations of taught behavior and practices that any positive disruptor has to understand those things in order to disrupt them in a way.
Absolutely.
And evolve them, and things are evolving. You see it, things are evolving in a way, and if you can look at it in a higher way, I think you can find your way through that.
Yeah.